What's up, folks? This is Acid Root, so I'm going to review the Hustle and Flow soundtrack that came out with the movie. Now, this has a number of accolades attached to it. For one thing, it was produced by T.I.'s label, Grand Hustle. That was at least his old label. I don't know if it still is, but T.I. helped produce this project. And it also had like the works of Terrence Howard and a bunch of Dirty South artists. So this was kind of a little bit ahead of like the Dirty South movement that kind of happened in the mid 2000s. Lil Wayne is not on here, but just about every Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, but most of the other Dirty South artists that were kind of prominent from that point forward are on here. So it has a little bit of a taste of Lil Jon, a little bit of a taste of like Lil Boozy and Webby, a little bit of a taste of T.I. and Little Scrappy and some crunk music. I mean, the main thing about this project is it has like touches of crunk, but it's not entirely like crunk like Lil Jon was just a few years before that. So there's some stuff on here. It's just kind of like an amalgamation of a bunch of Dirty South music. It has like how many flowing and overflowing styles that you're bound to find at least something depending upon the field of Dirty South that you like. But so this album did win an Oscar with the song "It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp." Now that the version of the album that I have has DJ or Terrence Howard. So Terrence Howard's name is DJ in the movie, so that's what we'll refer to him as. But DJ plays the song "Hard Out Here for a Pimp." 3 6 Mafia did the song also on their album, but I'll get to that at some point on another day. But so that song, Hard Out Here for a Pimp, won an Oscar, and that's also original just because most of the time rap soundtracks do not really win Oscars for their music. So there's been, a lot of times when there's a hip hop oriented movie, there will be like a soundtrack with it, which is kind of inspiring to make you want to get both, get the movie and the soundtrack. But this one was particularly stellar just because of what it did. And as a side note, to talk about the Hustle and Flow movie, if you actually haven't seen it yet, I mean, that's a very stellar movie. I mean, I saw it when it first came out, but I haven't watched it in a long time. But to kind of say, I would assume just by the movement of what has happened that it's still a relatively effective movie. I would have given it like a high score back in the day, but I'd still say it's above average. So it's worth seeing. I mean, it's dramatic, but obviously it does have some good consolidation there. So that's kind of the situation. But the rest of this is just Dirty South type stuff. There's not really any otherwise type stuff that you're gonna find. So if you don't like the South, Dirty South music, you're probably not gonna like this project. But there's 16 songs minus the skits, and we'll just kind of go in on some of this. So I'm a King Remix is the single that was released. And basically, there are two versions of this song. One is on the PSC album, which is T.I.'s group. And then the song that's on this version has Little Scrappy on there. So it's a nice combination. It's not my favorite song on here, but it was decent for the time. It was just like a kind of heads up for some T.I. if you needed more T.I. back in the day. So it's an effective song, but it really, I mean, it has a Lil Jon beat, which T.I. doesn't typically hop on Lil Jon beats. But I could not quite say that it's one of the best T.I. songs that I have heard. So, I mean, he nails it. I mean, T.I. is an adamant lyricist, but I just could not find, like, out of songs by T.I., like, if you think of, like, 24s and ASAP and some of these songs, What You Know, some of those, I mean, they pale. I mean, obviously, it was trying to introduce PSC, but it's more like B plus B, B as in ball, Ti more so than actual like gotta have this. So that's kind of the thing. But if you're interested in the Little Scrappy verse, that's also there. Then there was the Oscar song "It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp." So that's a pretty good song. I think I'd like the 3 6 Mafia version better. But when you listen to these DJ songs, which there are three of them, it kind of, I mean, DJ essentially sounds like just he probably just would have been a movie soundtrack rapper. I don't think he would have broken out. I mean, obviously this is a fictional character, but I mean, I could tell by the music that the character in the movie was trying to portray that he probably would have dropped like one or two albums and then just disappeared. But these are decent songs. I mean, it's decent Dirty South, but his sense of hustle is larger than his skill set, which is kind of the thing. That's just the thing. He probably would have just been more of like a promoter kind of individual, because that was kind of the situation. But these songs are good. They're not like fantastic. So that's the thing. It's when you think good but not great, that's kind of the quality. But this Hard Out Here for a Pimp, I mean, it's just so mellow, so kind of lackadaisical. I mean, I don't know how many times someone's gonna say, well, let's listen to Hard Out Here for a Pimp out of the blue. I mean, you might say like T.I., Webby, Underground Kings, Trillville, Boys in the Hood, but just it is kind of random. I mean, you can't really think of when you'd say you want to listen to a fictional, but it works. I mean, that's the thing. It's good music, so that's kind of the situation. I'm just looking for how and when I would listen to some of this out of the blue. But Whoop That Trick is a good. That's like a crunk song. That definitely reminds me of something Lil Jon or Trillville would have done, something like that, or Lil Scrappy. That had traces of that. And then the other song, Hustle and Flow, It Ain't Over, that just was kind of like a movie soundtrack, gotta get through the day kind of shit, where you just work and you get on your grind and you go from being a wimp to being like, all of a sudden by the end of the song you're top notch and you're super strong and shit. That's kind of a song for such a thing, but it worked. I mean, once again, these songs, they serve their purpose just because they're not really trying to be actual rap, like proving that, but it is good. So that's kind of the thing. So it is, you can tell, like, what I'm trying to say here is you can tell they're good for a movie soundtrack. That's kind of the situation. I mean, they're good songs, but the rappers do better. So this is kind of, I mean, my biggest question mark when I talk about this sort of stuff is just where I would actually listen to this sort of thing. Because out of the blue, you say, I feel like listening to DJ. I mean, DJ from Hustle and Flow. I mean, it's just kind of random. It just kind of happens out of nowhere, and you'd have to look for it. But that's about the only thing towards it. But for what it is, if you're just playing, if you're not really putting these songs in like a playlist or on your MP3 player or something, if you're just gonna go out and buy the album and throw it in your car, I would say it's efficient, and those are probably the better songs. But they're very, one note, and it's just like, yeah, that was a good song, but you move on. So that's just kind of the situation there. But all right, to talk about, I kind of got on that tangent for a while, but to talk about the rest of the songs on this project, it's kind of lackluster. The skits were just clips from the movie, and they didn't seem to be too effective. But some of the stuff on here, I'll talk about some of the ones that fell flat. Like the Lil Boozy song fell flat, and 8 Ball and MJG. I mean, some of these were just kind of in place of something, but there are a lot of big names on here. I mean, Trillville, Boys in the Hood, Juvenile with his crew Skip and Wacko, Webby and Trina, Mike Jones, PSC, Pimp C, or not Pimp C, but PSC, Al Capone. Just the whole gang is basically here. Lil Scrappy, Lil Jon Beats. So, but it just doesn't feel like the songs are that effective. I mean, really, from Puff Daddy's Making the Band, one of the rappers, Young City, is on here, and it's a decent beat, Lil Daddy, but I felt like it was just real low key. That's probably one of the most low key songs on this entire project. I mean, considering that most of this album had a well-known name on here, that's about the most low key on here. But it it just felt like the budget was different. I mean, it's a decent song, but it it's tricky to kind of compare and say you would listen to that one. He really doesn't have that many songs to his name. The Juvenile song was a decent club song. I mean, that's not like a complete get destroyed off liquor kind of song, but this is kind of, you post back in VIP and you kick back. you don't really get too many songs that seem to be about VIP in the club. It's kind of strange. Mike Jones was kind of free floating. I mean, the Still Tippin' remix was really not as good as like it might have appeared to be. I wasn't really feeling Nicole Ray's vocals, and it was just it was maybe too grandiose. I kind of thought that it wasn't as effective as the original Still Tippin' song. Um, but there are some good songs, so we'll talk about those. So I wound up liking 8 songs, 6 songs plus 2 almost songs out of 16. So it's about a little bit less than half of the album. So I'll just talk about those. I'm a King remix is one of the ones that made the cut, but wasn't quite as easily as you may have thought. It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp is a good one. Pussy Niggas with E40 is another good one. Whoop That Trick. Carbon 15s, AKs, and Mac 11s by Boys in the Hood. Juvenile and Skippin' Wacko's Booty Language. Hustle and Flow, It Ain't Over. And then, oh yeah, Let's Get a Room by Nasty Nardo. So that's another one. I mean, most of the time I do not usually appreciate on movie soundtracks like these cats who are only here like for one time and you never hear from them again. But he kind of reminded me of like a mixture between Juicy J and Pimp C. And plus it was a pretty decent, nasty little club song that sounded pretty effective. So I did like that. But E40 was, he had lyrical barbs on Pussy Niggas. He really did a good job on the song, and plus the beat was good. Might have been produced by Lil Jon. It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp. I already talked about that. It's real low key, but it works. It's kind of just a generic rap song. Carbon 15s with Boys in the Hood. Now this is a redeeming song. I wish this would have replaced one of the songs off Boys in the Hood's 2005 album, because I'm glad that they came through just to prove that they are as a group relatively effective. I mean, it's not as if they're still belle of the ball, but they have enough oomph, especially Jeezy, to the point where they can, make a nice little cameo appearance and not drop the ball. So that's good. Juvenile had a relatively slick song. That was one of my almost songs. I need to get used to that song a little bit more, but it's decent. And then the other almost song was, what was it? The Hustle and Flow, the title track, Hustle and Flow, It Ain't Over. I mean, that was what I was talking about just the gotta get money, gotta hustle, gotta come through kind of song. So, I mean, if you can find an idea of when to listen to that, you'd probably be set. But that just is kind of the thing. So, I'm going to give this project, basically I'll give this project me liking 6 songs out of 16 plus 2 almost songs. I'm going to give this album a 5.5 out of 10, a little bit more than half, just because I did feel like it's decent, but a lot of these songs fall flat, and it just feels like they picked the wrong Dirty South artist to kind of represent this project. Like, I was disappointed that the Lil Boozy song was not effective. The T.I. song was not, considering that he executive produced this project and it's on his label, that they would have had, better representation. But I'm a King is really not AAA, and the other song that they had on here, Murder Game, is not that efficient either. So, I mean, there just could have been, I figured that they would have put out something with a little bit more swagger, a little bit more stylish, a little bit more something to kind of have lyrical kind of content rather than just flexing and thug posturing and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where that comes from. But I would have liked like a song from 3-6 Mafia. They were really hot in 2005. 8 Ball, MJG, Trillville, Al Capone. Some of these cats were just not as much in the forefront as they probably could have been. Young City. I mean, a lot of these were kind of questionable and just didn't quite deliver. I felt like besides like 3-6 Mafia, T.I.'s group, and maybe the Lil Jon stuff, I mean, most of this was not uh, completely relevant to the times as far as Dirty South hip hop. Now, I said that there were big names. It's just they were not on fire at the time of this coming out. So this is kind of, obviously it could have had other things, but it's middle of the road. It's kind of like a draw. There's enough on here if you do decide to purchase this to say you're not going to be disappointed and cheated out of your money, but it's not a home run, hand over fist kind of win sort of thing. So that's just kind of the situation. I would have to say, the social score I'll give like a 5, or I'll give the social score a 5, just middle of the road, because the Ti song is decent, but it's not must have. And then the Hard Out Here for a Pimp is, once again, this is generic rap, but it's good. I mean, it's good generic rap, but it's very generic. So this is kind of the thing. So this is middle of the road, 2 singles that help promoted it. You just have to kind of take it as to what it is. So I just kind of feel like it's just very hit and miss. That's kind of the situation. It packs a punch, but not as much as you would think a lineup like from the Dirty South would actually have. So it's a Dirty South rap based movie, but it feels very light on like the quality to back up its punch. It has more bark than bite, I guess you could say. So that's kind of the situation.